Today, we're going to dig into one of nature's most incredible stories. It's all about how life reclaims even the most devastated landscapes. It's this predictable, really powerful process called ecological succession. And you know what? It all starts in some of the most unexpected places you can imagine.
So think about this for a second. What happens when a massive 40-ton whale dies and sinks to the bottom of the deep, dark ocean? It sounds like the end of a story, right? But it's actually the beginning of a whole new world. It doesn't just vanish. No, it kicks off one of the most bizarre and fascinating examples of life's incredible resilience.
Down in the pitch black, nutrient-starved abyss, this gigantic carcass becomes an oasis of life. They call it a whale fall, and it literally creates a complex, bustling, temporary world where just moments before, there was pretty much nothing. And this isn't some random feeding frenzy. Oh no, it's a predictable, almost like a multi-act play. First, the big scavengers show up, sharks, hagfish, that sort of thing. Then, once they're done, smaller critters move in to colonize the skeleton. And finally, for decades, we're talking 50, maybe even 100 years, specialized bacteria break down the very bones, creating this unique chemical-based food web. It is literally a community built on death.
Now, as weird and wonderful as this deep-sea banquet is, it's actually showing us a universal rule of nature. It's a perfect, if, a little extreme, example of how life reclaims a space after any major event, anywhere on Earth.
So, what are the rules of this game? Let's break down the fundamentals here, because the very same principles that apply to a whale fall also apply to a forest, maybe just a few miles from your house.
Okay, so it all kicks off with something called a disturbance. That's the scientific term for any event that just completely shakes up an ecosystem. For the deep sea, the disturbance wasn't a fire or a flood. It was the whale itself, this sudden, massive drop of resources. But as we're about to see, disturbances come in all shapes and sizes. I mean, think about it. A forest fire that clears out all the undergrowth, a volcano creating brand new land out of molten lava, or even human stuff like logging a forest. All of these events basically hit a giant reset button on the environment, opening the door for something totally new to begin.
And that brings us right to our main event, ecological succession. This is the official name for the whole process that comes after a disturbance. And the amazing part is, it's not chaotic. It's a gradual and surprisingly predictable series of changes as one community of species gets replaced by the next and the next.
And every story of secession has its heroes, the pioneer species. These guys are the tough, gritty first responders. On land, you can think of lichens, which can literally grow on bare rock. In our whale fall, it was those specialized bacteria. Their job is absolutely crucial. They move in, they start changing the environment, creating the first hints of soil or unlocking nutrients, and they make it possible for everyone else to follow.
All right, but not all recovery missions are created equal. Ecologists basically see two main pathways for succession, and the difference between them boils down to one critical ingredient: soil.
So we've got these two distinct paths. First, there's primary succession. This is life starting from absolute zero. Think bare rock after a volcano erupts. There's no soil, so the process of just creating it can take hundreds, maybe even thousands of years. It is incredibly slow. But if a disturbance like a forest fire sweeps through but leaves the soil behind, that's secondary succession, and with that foundation already there, recovery is much, much faster. I mean, it's an incredible question, isn't it? How does life actually conquer a completely barren landscape? Starting with nothing but bare rock seems impossible, but somehow life always finds a way. Let's take a closer look at that long, slow journey of primary succession.
Okay, so check this out. The journey from bare rock to a full-blown forest is just mind-blowing. It all starts with those little pioneer species, like lichens, that are chemically breaking down the rock. When they die, they create the very first super thin layer of soil. That allows small grasses and weeds to get a foothold, and their roots and their decay deepen the soil even more. Over centuries, this paves the way for shrubs, then small trees, and finally, a stable, mature forest, what ecologists call a climax community.
That whole process is amazing, but you know what? It's also incredibly rare. Most of the recovery we actually see happening out there in nature is the second type. So what happens when that foundation, the soil, is already there? Well, that's secondary succession, and it's all about getting a head start. After a wildfire, you've got seeds just waiting in the soil, ready to sprout almost immediately. An old abandoned farm field already has rich soil, which is just perfect for grasses and wildflowers to move right in. Because that foundation is already in place, the path back to a mature ecosystem is so much shorter. So why is understanding any of this so important? Well, because whether we're looking at a single whale carcass at the bottom of the ocean or an entire forest after a fire, succession tells us the fundamental story of how nature heals itself, adapts, and just keeps going. It's the ultimate story of resilience. When you get down to it, succession isn't just some abstract idea. It's the engine of resilience that powers the natural world. It explains the patterns of life we see all around us, and it gives us the scientific blueprint for how we can actively help ecosystems recover through things like conservation and restoration. And really, this is the core idea to take away. Succession is the fundamental story of how life rebuilds, adapts, and ultimately thrives, even when faced with constant change. It's this powerful narrative of persistence, showing that even after the most dramatic events, life has a predictable, step-by-step plan for coming back. And all of this leaves us with a really fascinating question to chew on. We talk all the time about preserving pristine or untouched nature, but succession proves that ecosystems are never static. They're always in flux, always recovering from the last disturbance and bracing for the next. So in a world that is defined by constant change, what does untouched even mean?